Vamos estampillas.
Close enough.
For you, in fact, coming up next up.
Come on.
Welcome to the Pod of Mayhem. I am Willy Atkins. Thank you for listening in to episode 2 featuring actor and artist Michael Schmid. If you enjoy this episode of the Pod of Mayhem, I invite you to give us a follow on Anchor.fm, Spotify, Apple Podcast, wherever you like to get your podcast. The Pod of Mayhem is coming to a bunch more places very soon, so stay tuned for that. Before we get started, I want to invite you to find us on Twitter at Pod of Mayhem. Also, stay in the loop on upcoming shows, guests, and information on our Facebook page, facebook.com/Pod of Mayhem. I'll be right back with my very good friend Michael Schmid right after a word from our sponsors. Are you enjoying the Pod of Mayhem and you want to start a podcast yourself? Well, if you haven't heard about Anchor, it's the easiest way to make a podcast. Let me explain. First and foremost, it's free. I mean, you can't be free, right? In addition to that, there's also creation tools that allow you to record and edit your podcast right from your phone or your computer. Anchor will distribute your podcast for you so it can be heard on Spotify, Apple Podcast, and many more platforms. You can even make money from your podcast with no minimum listenership. It's everything you need to make a podcast all in one place. So, if you'd like to check it out, download the free Anchor app or go to anchor.fm to get started. My friend Michael Schmid, it has been quite some time. It's so great to have you in the studio.
Too long. Thank you, man. Good to be here.
I should say not quite in studio. We're in somebody's house randomly in the middle of central Tennessee somewhere.
We'll just call it your remote studio.
Yeah, that'll work.
Smyrna, Tennessee.
Is that what it is? Smyrna? I was trying to decide how the hell to pronounce that earlier when I got here. We're basically in Nashville, or just outside of
Murfreesboro.
There you go. When I used to live in this area, Murfreesboro always seemed like it was a rough area. But I haven't got shot yet. I went by a place I used to live now nearby here earlier today just to see it. It seemed a little dark, so I left. But here we are, man. It's good to see you.
Well, I'm glad my morning appointment out in Murfreesboro is at the General Mills location. Hopefully I won't get shot there.
I think you'll be all right. You know, it seems like a lot nicer area than it was whenever I lived here 10 years ago. I do miss it, though. I love Nashville. I mean, have you spent some time vacationing in Nashville at all?
Not vacationing. I've had the opportunity to visit probably 3 or 4 times for my work, for my job, and have spent a couple nights cruising the downtown area. A lot of great places to go.
I used to work at the Coyote Ugly in downtown Nashville.
I didn't make it there.
It's the best job I ever had in my life.
Yeah, I imagine. I've hit Luke Bryan's, the Kid Rock Bar. Jason Aldean has a place out there that was pretty cool.
Seems like it's ever-changing. You got a few classic places like Tootsie's Orchid Lounge that have been around forever.
Yes, I've been there too.
But, I love going bar to bar down there. Damn good time.
Yeah, just pop in and out. Hit 10, 11 in a row and make a night of it.
Oh, that's excellent. All right, so I'm looking at things you've done here. I'm looking at 44 film acting credits, 20 producer credits, 19 editor credits, and a whole bunch of other random credits. You're also an inductee into our Hall of Fame in 2015. What was that like for you, man?
Specifically the inductee into the Hall of Fame?
I mean, what did that mean to you?
A lot. As you know, one of my first opportunities to work in Chicago film was being cast in Headline News with you. It's where we met. And throughout the next several years after that, I did a lot of stuff with you and your company and your crew. And it meant a lot to get recognized for all the work that I feel like I put into a lot of the films that we were a part of together.
Yeah, we had a lot of good times, man. That's for sure. Yeah. A lot of busy years. It seemed like they flew by like nothing. It's hard to believe how long ago some of these things took place. But I'm going to dig into some things that happened way before that. I'm curious about where you grew up, where you were born, what your family was like, childhood. What did you do as a child? Were you involved in sports or any extracurricular activities?
Both, yeah. So I was born in Chicago. My mom remarried when I was in the second grade, just after second grade. So early roots in Chicago, remarried, moved me to Indiana for third grade on, and kind of built a new life out there for us.
What part of Indiana was that? Still by Chicago?
West side of Indianapolis.
Oh, okay.
So Avon specifically.
All right.
Shout out to all my peeps in Avon. It was a very, very small town then. There was a McDonald's, there was a Dairy Queen, and that was pretty much it. Just a lot of flatlands with nothing, crops, and 20 years later now you can't drive through the town without stopping 18 times at stoplights.
Definitely a city now. Huh?
Oh my goodness, yeah, it's grown a lot, but good place to grow up. A lot of experience playing outside with the friends, and back then our parents didn't worry about putting us out on the streets. Just as long as we're back by the time the lights they'll go out in the street.
Yep.
Then everything's good. So a lot of outdoor activity, a lot of ghosts in the graveyard, a lot of flag football and that kind of stuff. So good place to grow up. Different nowadays, I imagine, for kids with just the video games inside and playing everything online, and that's pretty much your social life. So I was happy out there. But as far as sports and extracurricular activities, I did play baseball pretty young. I would say fourth grade through eighth grade, maybe.
See, I'm learning all sorts of new shit already.
I wasn't very good. I was very small, so that allowed me to shrink the batter's box, so to speak, and the pitching zone, and get a lot of walks. Never really hit the ball much. Played a lot of right field, and we all know what right fielders do. They just stand there.
Fill the spot.
Yeah, loved baseball. Never very good at it. I would like to get into a men's softball league here in my 40s. I think it'd be fun to revisit that. But I quit baseball eventually, I believe, to join the Cub Scouts.
Oh, there you go.
Yeah, I did. You know what? It might have been the other way around. Man, that was a long time ago. I think maybe I quit Cub Scouts to play baseball. And then I was involved in band. I played the French horn for about half a year. Oh, wow. Hated it. Switched to the trombone. Hated it even more. Was really pissed off as a kid because the saxophones were not available anymore. Oh, and I said, I'm done. So that was my life in music. About a year playing two really shitty instruments. Outside of that, by the time I got into high school, I was really active on the speech team. Fascinating. Real popular for that choice.
I got involved in a little bit of that as well. Yeah.
I became the vice president of speech team.
Not that involved, yeah.
But, those were probably some of the early roots of me becoming an actor. I participated specifically in dramatic interpretation. So I would basically read from Forrest Gump for 10 minutes, talking in the Forrest Gump voice. May not be a smart man, Jenny, but I know what love is.
You still got it, man.
So I did that for a long time. I did dramatic interpretation with A Few Good Men. I played all 5 central characters at once, had that whole 15-minute section memorized. So I think that's kind of what helped me early on with line memorization down the road. I spent a lot of time putting effort into the speech team. I also did duo interpretation, which is just pairing with somebody else and doing some back and forth, and then prose reading. And had quite a few ribbons. I placed in 9 or 10 competitions, I think, pretty high.
Wow. I mean, that basically is a education in acting right there. I mean,
yeah, I think that really prepared me for, certainly I've always hated public speaking, and it's hard for me to get up and talk in front of people, as myself still is, always will be.
Yeah.
But that gave me the confidence, I think, to just kind of throw myself into a character up there by myself. And I don't think I would have had success in acting down the road had I not done that.
Yeah, that reminds me of this one public speaking endeavor that I gave you at hosting a film festival. And you didn't quite do it the traditional way. You want to explain to people how you handled that task?
Yeah, I was terrified. I was honored to be asked to do it, but you're right. I thought the easiest way for me to get through that whole day was to dress up in characters I had previously played in films that probably nobody ever saw who was there. So, you come on stage as Machismo, and there's 3 people in the audience who know what I'm doing. Probably a mistake, and I don't know, hopefully it was funny enough. But yeah, I went up as various characters throughout the day, and that kind of got me through being the host in a public situation like that. Because had I had to do that as myself, I would have just froze up.
I think it went over very well. I think in witnessing that, I think a lot of people started to ask questions and get to know what those characters were involved in. It's kind of a genius marketing, pitch for the independent filmmaker.
I was going to say self-indulgent, but yeah.
Well, go with it. We can think of a lot of adjectives, I'm sure.
Yeah, right.
So how did we go from high school speech to going to college for theater, right? It was theater.
Yeah.
And when did you decide that, that's the direction you really wanted to take, or something you really wanted to get involved in?
So all throughout high school, I was pretty heavily involved in my local church. And I had wanted to be a youth minister, mainly because all my friends around me were suddenly making the choice to do that. I had a lot of fun with the youth group. I thought the world of my youth minister then, and thought that maybe that would be something I'd like to do. Take high school kids to Kings Island every year, and organize lock-ins and laser tag events, and I just thought that would be fun. Yeah. So with that church, I got involved in their traveling drama team, and that was all new to me. Had a couple small roles the first year, got some laughs in front of the church on the stage. It's like, okay, I kind of like this. Led me to audition for Romeo and Juliet at my high school, my sophomore year. Got cast in that. One line, I think I was Watchman number 2.
Excellent.
I named my character Valentine because they dressed me in pink. And so pink became kind of my color throughout the rest of the years within that drama department. I always had pink somewhere in my costume, just as a tribute to that. But that's what really kind of made me fall in love with acting, was being part of that specific show. That sounds funny because I had one line, so you figure how cool could that be. But that was my first real experience with a cast and crew of 30 plus people, and the kind of family and bond that occurs with that much time together.
I don't think people realize anything of what kind of family bond you create on a set until you actually experience it. You would never expect it.
Yeah, and it's heartbreaking when it's over, because they feel truly like your family.
Oh yeah.
For a 3-month period of time, and then you move on.
Your family that fought through a lot of things to accomplish something too.
Yeah, and it's the same with film in a lot of senses, but especially with theater. With film, people come and go. You're sometimes in scenes and on set with some people. Sometimes you never see some people who are in the film. With plays, you have 2 months of rehearsal, and you're there with them every night of the week for 2 months straight, and just a lot of time spent together going into that. And it really does cause some pretty close relationships. So I fell in love with that and continued to pursue the auditions in my high school. And by my senior year of high school, I had the lead role in the school play. And I had a pretty prominent role in the school musical. I didn't have to sing, thank God, but I was the comic relief in Brigadoon. I played Jeff Douglas, who had a lot of funny lines. And I think it was after doing those 2 shows where I realized I was no longer going to go to Bible school.
Yeah.
I've got to throw something else in there. I was dating a girl who was still in high school when I was graduating, and I knew she was going to still be in high school. And I had been planning going to Cincinnati Bible College. And Indiana University sounded a lot more appealing when I had a girl at home. So I was looking for both someplace closer and heavily leaning towards maybe I'd rather do acting with my life at that point. So that's why I chose IU.
Excellent. What was it like at IU? I mean,
Amazing.
yeah.
Best 4 years of my life.
Any standout performances or even teachers there?
Oh, certainly a lot of great teachers. They had a very good what's the word I'm looking for here? Master's program, I guess, for people who were going to get their advanced degree in theater, and they only had 3 each year. But a pretty good underclass routine as well, and people out there like Dale McFadden, Howard Jensen, Bruce Burgun, very talented directors that really helped shape a lot of people to become great actors long term. And so it was very exciting. What wasn't exciting is it was highly competitive, and I actually only appeared on IU's main stage once, and I appeared in their black box theater once. Everything else I did in college was local community theater, mostly off-site.
Wow.
So I still had maybe 15, 20 plays that I did throughout college, but only actually 2 of them were sponsored IU productions. So, that was a little bit heartbreaking. It's just, at the same time, it prepares you for the real world because it's that competitive, if not more.
Oh, yeah.
And, can't expect to be in everything.
Yeah, of all those auditions you go to, I mean, how often do you actually get one of those roles, man?
They say if you book 1 out of 10, you're in pretty good shape.
Right.
That kind of stands true, I think.
Well, we got a lot more to talk about, film included. We'll be right back. All right, welcome back to the Pod of Mayhem. I'm Willy Atkins here with my very good friend, my brother Michael Schmid. Thanks for coming out. Before the break, we were just talking about college in Indiana and theater. And I'm just curious, I mean, did theater continue after school for you?
No. I think since college, I've done 2 stage productions. And pretty quickly after. So right after IU, I moved back home with the parents, as most kids do after school. And I was able to get involved with the Monroe County Civic Theater out there and got cast as the lead role in their local production, which was a ton of fun and real good experience for me. I got nominated for and won a Best Comedic Actor award for that show.
Nice.
And that gave me a lot of confidence to move elsewhere. Around that time, I'd actually met Chad Four, who is now my closest friend and business partner, in college doing a show there. And we weren't real close in college. I didn't know the guy very well. We had hung out socially in groups, really, 5 or 6 times. But we had just kind of jokingly talked about, hey, if you go to L.A., give me a ring. I'd like to maybe travel out there with you. So it was that whole kind of thing. And then he graduated a year before me, and we didn't have a whole lot of communication. Flash forward about 2 years later, I get the opportunity to move to Austin, Texas. I had a friend from high school who moved out there to try to make it as a drummer, very good drummer, Jeremiah Pruitt. And his roommate had actually, he had a bass player move out there with him, and the bass player, after about 6 months or so, decided he was pretty homesick and moved back to Indiana, leaving Jeremiah with a 2-bedroom apartment by himself. So he reached out to me and was just like, hey, man, film scene out here is pretty amazing. You should look in Austin, maybe think about coming out here. I got a room for you. So I did some research and found out that University of Texas, UT, was a very reputable film school, and it was kind of the dawn of the digital filmmaking, kind of the first time that people were able to afford to produce their own movies because they no longer had to shoot on film stock. They could do digital, right, which was still pretty expensive then compared to now, but enough people had the resources to do it out there. And so I was like, okay, well, that's a great training ground if I ever want to get involved with film. A lot of students making productions out there at least, so let's give that a shot. So I moved out there, and shortly after, I'd say within the first year, Jeremiah moved out with a girlfriend, and all of a sudden it's me that has the open room. And then I remember Chad, And I called him up. I'm like, hey, dude, remember me? I know this is not L.A., but it's pretty kicking out here in Austin. You maybe should come. And without hesitation, he made the decision. I really don't know this guy all that well, but we just kind of knew there was a connection, this brief and little as it was, that we just kind of trusted each other, that we would get along great.
That's one thing I've always admired about you. Did you remember, like, you're talking about such a minute conversation with someone in passing that a lot of people would brush off as you're not really interested or whatever, but you still came back full circle to have this conversation with him about potentially
I did.
moving. It's just amazing stuff.
Yeah, and we've not looked back. We've been tight brothers ever since then, man, and it was great. And in Austin, I spent 3 years there. I got to work on, I'd say, about 10 movies, and gave me the confidence to continue doing that. So to answer your question from 5 minutes ago, I kind of realized moving to Texas that I was really much more interested in film at that point.
So that was the transition to film.
Yeah, exactly. And I never really had much desire to get back on stage. Now, certainly I've thought about it a lot over the last 10 years, but I was pretty excited to get involved with film, and that became my passion pretty quickly.
Cool. So you get down there. Chad Forer joins you in Texas. At what point does Four Lizard Productions come about, and how does that come about? The name is quite intriguing, I'm sure, to most listeners who aren't familiar with it.
Yeah, great question. So I had auditioned for a guy named Ken Johnson, who was doing sort of like a Saturday Night Live kind of sketch comedy series, putting together just a bunch of short, fun sketches. And excuse me. So he cast me as a couple small parts in that series, and then kind of began to mentor me with behind the scenes stuff. So, teaching me how to run the camera, how to set lights, how to do some editing, and I said, Ken, if you wouldn't mind, I would love to give it a shot to try to make my own film. May I borrow your equipment? And he's like, yeah, all the help you've given me with all my stuff here, sure, take it for the weekend and see what you can do. So I wrote a 10-page script and said, Chad, hey, what do you think about playing the lead in this? And we'll do it together kind of thing. And that was the official first project between Chad and myself. Four Lizard, the name, comes from his last name, Four, spelled Foor. So the numerical 4 makes sense. The lizard comes from me in college. I was probably the biggest Jim Morrison fan most of my friends knew. I wore a lizard necklace constantly, and people called me the Lizard King. So I just incorporated that part of my personality into the name, and we called it Four Lizard, and that's kind of where it started. Now, of course, every time we tell people the name, well, there's only 2 or 3 of you guys. Where's the 4th lizard? Nobody gets the pun on Chad's name, of course. That's where it started.
Just tell them that the viewer's the 4th person.
There you go.
There you go. So what was that transition like from theater to film? Obviously, it's 2 very different mediums. Was it an easy transition for you?
Not
a lot of learning curves?
Yeah, not an easy one at all. As you know, they're 2 completely different animals. And just because you have some success in one doesn't mean you'll be very good in the other one.
Oh, yeah.
Just 2 very different crafts. And the most difficult thing about being a film actor is that, it's all the waiting. There's, you actually do actual acting work for 2-3 minutes, and then you could spend the next 3 hours waiting. Yep. And those times in between, trying to stay in character and keep focus can be difficult and challenging. And on top of that, nothing is done in order. Everything is shot out of sequence. So there's no real continuity to your performance without a lot of previous homework done on your role by yourself. And that's obviously the opposite with stage. With stage, you can craft a performance and do it repeatedly in order, and it all kind of makes sense. It's very tricky trying to make the transition to being a film actor from a theater actor. Now, on the other side of that spectrum, to go from, like right now, if I tried to go back to the stage, I would have just as much struggle for same reasons. Because, after 20 years of not being in that craft and that practice, it would take a lot, I think, to get back into that mindset and that way of working.
So what was that very first film experience like for you? And what was that very first film experience?
The very first one actually wasn't in Texas. It was in college. There was a lady who was casting a pilot episode for a TV show that she planned to show on the public access channel in Bloomington. And that was called Parables, and her name was Barbara Lance. And it was my freshman year, I think, of college. Yeah, freshman year. I had really long hair down below my shoulders, and she cast me as the hippie kid, the stoner kid, and that's actually how I met Chad Four. Chad Four was cast as an Indian in that film, and when I met Chad, it was a scene we did around a campfire, and he was asked to be shirtless and was dancing around the campfire, and apparently in post-production they were going to put all sorts of Indian tattoos and whatever makeup on him to make him look like an actual Indian. But during the shooting, it was just silly old Chad running around without a shirt on. And he made me laugh immediately, and that's where we connected. So my first film experience, coincidentally, actually was with Chad. And then my first, real venture into making my own films was also with Chad. So pretty cool.
When a project doesn't seem like it ever comes to, fruition, it never gets completed or something randomly goes wrong with it, I found that I seem to take away something from everything I've ever done, whether it was a good experience or bad. And, you just hit the nail on the head with a prime example of that. You guys are just ingenious together.
Thank you.
It's unbelievable. So we talked a lot about you and Chad, but I'm curious, how did Patrick get involved? Or, where did you guys eventually come to know Patrick Love?
So I went to high school with Patrick Love. Another situation, we were not really friends in high school, but we were in a couple of shows together. He kind of ran with a different crowd, but we had some mutual friends. And I knew that he was just a pretty quirky, silly, memorable kind of guy. Always has had and still does have just a very unique way about him and a unique sense of humor. And so I always knew that he would be a lot of fun to be friends with, but that never happened in high school for whatever reason. It wasn't until college. He was a year below me. My sophomore year, I had a couple friends moving up to IU to go to school, and we had a suite, so it was basically 2 giant rooms with bunk beds in both rooms connected by a bathroom. And the 3 of us were looking for a 4th person to kind of fill out that room, and we didn't want to just take in somebody we didn't know at all. So the name got tossed around. Hey, how about Patrick Love? He was pretty cool in high school. He's planning on coming to IU. Why don't we just see if he wants to live with us? So Patrick ended up being my roommate sophomore year of college. That's where we really got to get to know each other. So flash forward after that, I leave for Texas. I kind of lose track of Patrick Love. Patrick actually graduated college with a degree in education and wound up moving to Chicago to pursue improv comedy, of all things. So while I'm in Austin, Texas with Chad, Patrick is in Chicago doing Second City and I.O. and did very well there. And so when I moved to Chicago 3 years later, once I left Austin, I spent a lot of time trying to track the guy down. I hadn't spoken to him in probably 4 years. I looked up every Patrick Love in the phone book. As you might suspect, there's quite a few people named Patrick Love. It's not an uncommon name.
As cool as it is.
It is awesome, but surprisingly a lot of females that have P. Love. And so it was difficult to track through the phone book. I think I sent letters and made phone calls to various educational organizations just trying to track the dude down. Never found him. 6, 7, 8 months later, I connect with somebody from high school who just happens to have his address. And found him and brought him over, and we hung out and showed him the film that Chad and I did in college that we previously spoke of here. And he was like, yeah, that's awesome. I want to get involved. So we decided to add a new member to Four Lizard Productions. And you eventually went on to design the logo that we wanted for the company.
This logo, man, I'm still just amazed at the way this thing worked. Because I remember you telling me, roughly a rough idea, kind of what you were looking for.
Yeah, I don't think I showed you anything. I just kind of described to you what I had in mind.
And I did this design the same day we spoke over the phone about it.
Mm-hmm.
And to have you show me this drawing, and I'll try to get this posted on the Pot of Mayhem Facebook eventually here, but the drawing that you sent me, when did you do this drawing?
I had sketched that at some point in Texas, so it was probably a good 5 years prior to what we're talking about here.
Unbelievable. But it's just amazing to see what the logo looks like that I designed compared to what you had drawn 5 years previous without actually being able to see that. Yeah,
it was great. The vision matched completely between the two of us, and what we did, because we didn't want to change the name of the company, but we wanted to incorporate Patrick Love somehow. We had you put little hearts for all the lizard's eyes for the symbol of love, so that love would be in the name somehow.
Yeah, I love that logo. So proud of that logo, man.
Yeah, we are too. Thank you.
Well, we're going to take another quick break. We got more to talk about.
Run from the monster man. 'Cause he'll get you with his claws if he can. Monster man from Planet Z. Monster man from Planet Z. His daddy in a boiling pot, and now he's come out to see what you've got. Monster man from Planet Z. 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 Want to see what the future holds for you? You better heed the words of Papa Canoe. Monster Man from Planet Z. Monster Man from Planet Z.
All right, we're back, and that song we just played was a pretty unique one that I don't get to play very often, but I absolutely love. Can you tell people where that song would have come from?
Yeah, so from the brilliant mind of Patrick Love came the script for Green Lobsterman from Planet Z.
What a hell of a name.
Yeah, so just to give a little background, he just was a big fan of the badness that was Plan 9 from Outer Space and Ed Wood and the way Ed Wood worked. And so he just thought that he'd make a movie just as silly, and I think he was very successful in accomplishing that. As far as the song, Chad has a friend named Steve Laddick, who is a pretty amazing musician. That we had kind of heard some stuff from him previously, especially Chad. And so we went to him, and Patrick basically said, I just want kind of something ridiculous in sort of a B-52's Rock Lobster kind of style. And that dude cranked out that song in just a couple hours, brought us all in to do the vocals on it. And it all happened very quickly, and just turned out to be one of the most damn catchy songs ever put on.
You hear it one time, you will never forget it.
Yeah, it's so funny. There's some people who we actually uploaded it to iTunes, and there's some people who just wanted it for their ringtone on their phone and whatnot. So it's pretty crazy.
That led to another Ed Wood tribute, right?
Yeah. So we all got a lot of positive feedback on that. And when we, just to back up a bit, when we started out with For Lizard, we just kind of we didn't really know what we were doing. We probably still don't to some extent, but we basically just said, okay, there's three of us. How about we all just, we'll write scripts and we'll just kind of take turns. You write and direct one, I'll write direct one, you write, So we started that way. I did the first one, which was Toilet Pursuit, which I won't be upset if nobody ever sees that movie at this point.
Is it as good as it sounds?
No, it was pretty awful, but it's fun for us. That was kind of the first one.
Honestly, I have seen that. I remembered it. I enjoyed it. It was pretty comical.
Sadly, we showed it at some events. And Chad did one called Wives and Suicide, which was was fun, but kind of a hot mess because we had a lot of audio issues. We shot outside on a rooftop, and the wind pretty much destroyed everything. And so we just put together whatever film we could try to put together. And then Patrick came along with Green Lobster Men from Planet Z, and at that point, I think Chad and I both kind of looked at each other and just said, all right, dude, let's just pass the torch. Let's just let this guy run. And we just loved what he did with that and wanted to see what we could keep doing with Patrick at the helm. And so he went on to do our next movie, which was House of the Degenerate Brain-Eating Mutant Fog Insects, which you were in, as you know. And that was a ton of fun as well. And Steve Laddick also did an amazing score for that movie for us as well. And then we were like, okay, well, we might as well just make a trilogy out of this. And, he kind of basically said, the Lobstermen was what Ed Wood did in the beginning.
Trilogy in the Ed Wood style, you mean?
Exactly.
Okay.
So the first one was kind of like what Ed Wood started with. The House of Mutant Fog was kind of what he did at the high point of his career when he was sort of getting known as a better filmmaker, I would say. And then what would Ed Wood do now was kind of probably, right? That was kind of the theory going into it with Patrick was like, well, I'd like to see what Ed Wood would make if he was still around today. What kind of movie would that be? And I think that was kind of the inspiration behind writing our first feature-length movie, which was Fangs versus Spurs. So it kind of is a trilogy.
Now, Fangs versus Spurs went through a lot of change.
Yeah.
I mean, obviously I've seen this film as well, and it doesn't come across as quite the Ed Wood style. And what really encouraged such change in that film?
I think it, with the first draft of the script, when Chad and Patrick and I got together to read it and kind of started vocalizing some of the roles, I think we just kind of realized that it just, Ed Wood aside, might be a good movie. And the more we looked into it and we started to discuss things with John Norton and Daryl Moore, and we just kind of realized, bigger picture, this could stand alone as not just a tongue-in-cheek Ed Wood tribute film, but just as a damn entertaining movie if we just put all the Ed Wood stuff aside and say, how can we just make this great? So the intention was to make it a trilogy, and that's kind of where it started. But by the time we were in production, we weren't even thinking about Ed Wood.
Yeah, it definitely shows. I always call it the Four Lizard film because that's like when it seems like you guys found your own identity with that one, really. Yeah.
I mean, Patrick's writing and directing, I think, is brilliant on that movie. And lucky for us, I always knew it would take a long time to develop all the right relationships, so to speak. And I feel like I spent 10 years in Chicago grooming myself to build the relationships to bring on everybody we needed to make something of that magnitude. And no joke aside, we had people in mind pretty much for every single role, and I only had one person turn down what was offered to them. And it was somebody I didn't know very well. Yeah. So, everybody was excited to be on board. We feel like we handpicked the best talent in Chicago to play the roles that we offered to them. And then on top of that, we just had an amazing crew behind us. The cinematography that John does on the film, I think, is awesome. It's certainly the most involved I've been with any kind of production, but to edit that film was madness and sheer joy at the same time.
Oh, I know what that feeling's like.
Yeah.
So, stepping outside of Four Lizard, actually we'll include Four Lizard. You've worked with a bunch of different directors,
I have.
Producers, filmmakers. What did I say? Something in the neighborhood of, I don't remember, 30 credits in film, acting.
44 acting, I think you said.
Yep, 44. Holy crap. I don't know what my number is. I'll look at that later. I'm curious. But 44 film credits. I'm sure there's others that aren't even listed. That's on IMDb.
Right.
Of those, you've played a lot of characters that are extreme contrast to each other. What characters do you really enjoy playing? Which of those characters really stands out to you? Which do you relate to? Which are just fun? Let's talk about these characters, the characters you take on stage when you host a film festival, per se. Let's talk about the characters that you've portrayed.
Most of my my existence, I've either been cast as the kind of half-wit or just a real asshole, and not a whole lot in between. And that's what I have fun playing. That's what I'm specifically good at, I think, is playing those two types of characters. I think I've got a decent range, but those are the roles I tend to have fun with and gravitate towards. So anything like Roy from Headline News will always stand out to me. Machismo from one of Patrick's early movies, Ed and the Awakening, just the ridiculous kind of stuff. And then most recently, I think one of the final 2 films that I did when I was still in Chicago was with Shannon Brown and Cuba, Every 21 Seconds. And really great script and inspiring, heartbreaking, but inspiring story about PTSD. And I played the instigator in that incident, which real asshole. And I feel like I was pretty good in that film, and I was pretty happy with the performance. But those are the kind of things that I tend to do well with. I'm okay at playing the everyman, I guess. I think some people enjoyed me in What in the Sam Hill, which is sort of just kind of a normal dude who's in really bad, rough situations. So I don't know. My favorite roles tend to be the kind of the quirky characters, the half-wits and the assholes.
Roy was a crossover character, right? I'm trying to remember what films Roy was in.
Well, Roy obviously was created in the audition room based on the words you had on the page, and was such a complimentary success towards me that we brought him back in Ghost Humpers, I believe he appeared in.
Yeah.
And then Keith Romine was doing, what was the name of it? Suburban Legends, I think it was called. And there was one sequence where he needed an officer or a deputy, and we just turned that into Roy too and brought back Roy for that. So I think just those 3. Am I leaving something out?
I'm not sure. That's what I'm trying to remember myself. I feel like there was something else. Maybe it was written and never.
I think you wrote him into Hellbillies, which is yet to be produced. Correct?
That is very true.
Yeah, but that would have been fun. I'm still on board if it ever happens.
It very well might.
Awesome.
We'll have to talk about that after we're off air. But yeah, there's news to talk about involving Hellbillies. Cool. Wow. So at one time, I recall going online and seeing that 4Lizard had produced a comedy series. What was that all about? What was that like compared to producing film for you?
Fun. We wanted to be able to do something where it was just the schedule of the 3 of us, something we could do alone together, be creative, have fun, but not have to worry about gathering cast and crew. And we had just recently gotten new equipment, so we wanted to test it with something. And webisodes were just kind of becoming a thing then. And we just decided to write as many short sketches as we could for the 3 of us. And we would get together pretty consistently about once a week, either at Patrick or Chad's place, and just kind of read with each other what we had written throughout the week. And eventually we pulled kind of what we thought were the 6 funniest sketches out of that pile of stuff and said, let's just kind of do an alternate reality of ourselves. Let's just play alternate realities with our own personalities and kind of flip things around. So, of course, my character kind of was the asshole. That's where it starts.
I get that all the time myself. It's all right.
Yeah. And they were all just it's very much absurdism, just very absurd, stupid, silly stuff. But we were happy with how they came out, and we got them up on Funny or Die, which they are still there. So if anybody wants to see it, it's called Behind the Mask, and that's on Funny or Die.
Excellent. So very early on in our conversation today, we were talking about developing a theater family or a film family, creative arts family. I'm curious about the people you've worked with that really have stand out, in your time in film or theater, for that matter. Beyond, we learned a lot about Chad and Patrick. So beyond Chad and Patrick, who are those standout characters that have really, been inspirational to you or have played a major role in your successes in film?
Sure. Well, I'm sitting with one of them. A lot of it begins with you. You certainly helped me develop another family of creative and talented people that I continued to work with the whole time I was in Chicago. And allowed me to meet a lot of other people as well. Also, pretty early on, I had the opportunity to meet Jason Patfield, which is kind of a strange story. He just happened to work in the lighting industry, nothing to do with film, really. Chad was also working in the lighting industry, and they would have conversations business to business over the phone. And then just one day realized that they both were passionate about independent film. And so Chad brought me along. I met Jason Patfield and did 4 or 5 shows pretty early on. I think those were some of my first experiences in Chicago, was working with Jason Patfield and his crew, Bubble Nuts Productions, and had a lot of fun with that and learned a lot, met some people. And through that experience, Jason Patfield got me on as a PA for Jose Carlos Gomez, I should say, for the film Plastic, which I played a small role in as a stoner who gets thoroughly beat up by Harold Dennis, which was my first experience with the great Harold as well. But meeting Jose was instrumental. I just right off the bat, saw his talent and passion in what he did, and he had already made Bled White, which was an incredible movie, and went on to work with him on The Disappeared and Day One, which I had a pretty great role in as well. So Jose has been a big influence, and I hope that guy continues to make movies. He kind of took a step back to work on music and focus there, but hopefully we'll see more stuff from him. On that set of Plastic, I met Daryl Moore for the first time, and that dude's like a brother to me, always will be. He's family, and worked on quite a few projects together. We had Front Porch Productions going for a little while with Laura Lacazio until that all fell apart, but we did a couple films together and went on to form Faith Entertainment Group, and I worked on a few films with Daryl there. And Daryl's still working consistently, without me, of course, because I moved, but he's doing some pretty amazing things in Chicago.
Can you hear me now? That was Roy.
You know what? His name was Roy, and I did kind of use the same inflection vocally, so that pretty much did become Roy.
That wasn't before Headline News.
No, it was definitely
after.
after. But I think we just kind of thought because the character was written with the name Roy. I don't think Daryl had that intention.
Yeah.
I think you and I being on set just thought it'd be kind of funny if I just played it with the kind of accent that Roy had. So yeah, you're right. That's funny. But yeah, that was actually the first film that Daryl and I kind of produced and worked on together with his company, and we went on to do a few more after that. And then I met John Wesley Norton for the first time at a screening of Paranormal Calamity, and then he reached out to me a few months later and asked me if I could work as a PA for the weekend on Dr. Spine, and kind of built from there. And I went on to do a lot of editing and acting with John in the next 4, 5, 6 projects, and there's still some stuff floating around that hasn't been released but will be soon. With John, so he's been pretty instrumental to me as well. So I would say, yeah, yourself, Patfield, Jose, John, Daryl would be the 5 people I'm most proud to have worked with and grown with.
Well, there is a number of titles that you've produced or acted in. A number of these I know are still yet to be released. What films do you know, off the top of your head anyway, that can readily be seen now for our listeners so they can see the work you've done?
You know, Willie, that's the funny thing about independent film is most of it never gets seen. There is not a lot. Like I said, there's the webisode series on Funny or Die. Every 21 Seconds, previously mentioned, is on Amazon. The movies I've worked with you on, a couple of them, specifically What in the Sam Hill, is definitely on Amazon. Was there other ones that you put up there as well?
I distributed Can You Hear Me Now, which is on Amazon Prime, I believe.
Good deal. We are working on getting Fangs versus Spurs up there. We hope to have that done within the next month or two. So I would say by February, March, for sure, it should be ready to go.
Bacon will be on Amazon also here very soon.
Outside of that, just reach out to me, and I'll try to get you a DVD.
Excellent. I want like 4 copies of House of the Degenerate Bringing Meat and Fog Insects.
That's the one that everybody wants, and we did make the promise to people who donated to support Fangs versus Spurs, which was forever ago. I know. Don't give me shit. It's on the way. We are working to get those DVDs done, and that was promised as a bonus feature on that DVD for those supporters as limited editions. So some people will have that available soon, but I think we'll probably just go ahead and put it on the permanent release too, because we definitely want people to see the movie.
Excellent. Well, we are about to wrap this up here pretty quick. I mean, outside of the films we've talked about, it's been a little while since you've been on a film set, and you've been kind of away. Is there, you don't have to talk about this if you don't wish to, but is there a reason you have been away, and when will we see Mike Schmid in the light again?
You know, the reason is just the way life progresses. I got the opportunity with the company I had been working for to take a very good position as a territory rep. Unfortunately, that required me to relocate. So I left Chicago and moved to Taylorsville, Kentucky, just about 30 minutes south of Louisville, in June of 2018. So that pretty much took me out of the ball game. There's not a whole lot of at least not that I can see, a film happening in Louisville.
And you're the family man now, too. You went and got yourself married, huh?
I got myself married, yes. We have a lot of fur babies, and we have some other family with us now. So it's, I tell you, man, I couldn't be happier, though. It was by far the right decision. I've never been more happy personally, but I obviously miss the creativity that I've lost by making that choice.
I got to say, I've told you this before, I'm truly proud of you. I recall having a conversation with you at a studio that we were sitting at in the middle of the night after a couple of drinks, and you being at a very low point. Mm-hmm. And we shared a lot of tears and a lot of stories that this podcast will never cover. But
nor should it.
Exactly. But in contrast to today, from that time, man, I can't be more proud of you and what you've accomplished.
Oh, thanks, man.
Beyond the film stuff, I mean, family first, and you've certainly made family of yourself as well as a wonderful wife. So
thank you. I've been saved by the love of a woman, and that's what it takes.
So I'm dying to know. You tell me you have some new news for me. I
do. So as mentioned, I no longer have the ability to be creative, at least in the film world, and I hope that's very temporary. I hope that comes back to my future at some point. So in the meantime, when I was in high school, I was very heavily considering going to art school, and I won some state awards for some pieces I did in high school. I did a little bit of artwork post-college, but really nothing in 20 years. And so I've been bouncing around, probably every couple months, Lisa might hear me say, man, I really want to get back into my art again. And she took notice of that, and for Christmas this year, she bought me an easel and a really nice set of colored pencils and said, no more talking, just do. And so this week I created a new website, michaelschmidart.com. Obviously still under construction, but my path to creativity moving forward is to get back into art. I'm going to start with colored pencils and move my way up to pastels, oils, etc. And my favorite thing has always been pen and ink illustration, pointillism, which is what I excel at. So got to start small, but work my way up, and I'll be putting those up on my website and looking for feedback. And if anybody wants to buy them, I would love to let you hang my art in your house for a cheap price. So that's the new creative path for me, because it's something I can do on my own and on my own time specifically, and that's pretty exciting that I'm forcing myself to get back into it, man.
It's evolution, but it's also full circle, man.
Yes, exactly.
It's kind of weird the way that works. I was doing radio, I don't know, 10 or 15 years ago in Chicago. I stopped doing all that for the longest time, was working in film, and here I am running a podcast all of a sudden.
I know.
A decade later.
Yeah, well, you it's just being creative is what keeps me happy and thriving. And if this is what it's going to take, me having to step away from film kind of beyond my control, then I have that much more focus to go at this. So again, michaelschmidart.com. That's where I'll be hosting my newest material that I produce over the next several months, and hopefully you guys will check it out.
Awesome, brother. Always a pleasure to have you around. Don't get to see you enough, but I'm just glad we managed to make this happen when we do.
Yeah, thanks, man. It's a pleasure. Thank you for asking me, and what a weird coincidence it was that we both just happened to be in Smyrna, Tennessee on the same night.
Unbelievable.
Unbelievable.
Take care, my friend.
Take care. Thank you.
All right, my friends, I want to thank you all for listening in. Another huge thanks to Michael Schmid for being my guest on the Pod of Mayhem this week. Be sure to check out his brand new website, michaelschmidart.com, to check out his artistic talent beyond the stage and screen. That's michaelschmidart.com. If you've enjoyed this episode of the Pod of Mayhem, please give me a follow on Anchor.fm, Spotify, and Apple Podcasts, or wherever you like to get your podcast. To keep in the loop with what I'm doing and access all my social media, simply visit willyatkins.com. New podcasts are being released every week now on Thursdays. Some distribution channels do take a little bit longer than others, so be sure to follow and subscribe on your choice platform. And you can always find the most up-to-date releases of the Pod of Mayhem, as well as other new shows coming soon, at BreakingFateRadio.com. Next week, we'll feature filmmaker Dragon Alexander, Blackwood X Productions. And then the following week, paranormal author and historian Ursula Bielski will be on the show. It's another one not to miss. Till next time, I'm Willy Atkins. Thanks a lot for listening. See ya.
Bravo!
I loved that.
Oh, it was great.
Well, it was pretty good.
Well, it wasn't bad.
Well, there were parts of it that weren't very good, though.
It could have been a lot better.
I didn't really like it.
It was pretty terrible.
It was bad.
It was awful.
It was terrible.
Get him away!
Hey, boo!
Boo!